Hi everyone, welcome to the White Glove Trucking channel, where I help you use trucking as a vehicle to live your best life. Today's video is all about IFTA, the International Fuel Trade Agreement. Today's video is how I survived my IFTA audit. So what is IFTA? IFTA is the International Fuel Trade Agreement. And basically it's a agreement between all the states, I think Canada and Mexico also included, that allows us to not have to pay fuel taxes in each state we go through. I think back in the old days, they had to pay, fuel taxes in each state. So in order to track your IFTA, you basically track the miles you travel in each state and the amount of fuel gallons you purchase in each state. Now you have to file your IFTA every quarter. So every 3 months, you have to file your IFTA. I file it with my Department of Motor Vehicles in Virginia. So you would just file it with yours in your particular state. When I first started trucking, I did a bunch of research on how you were supposed to purchase your fuel based on if the way, technically I don't do it the way that you're supposed to do it. I just do it what I find to be the easiest way. So let me break it down. The first, the easiest way, no, the way you're supposed to do it is, ideally, if you were doing it the way you're precisely supposed to do it, you would look at the fuel prices in each state, okay? When you're doing your pre-trip, you would look at the fuel prices in each state and you would determine who has the cheapest fuel, okay? Which state you're going to be traveling through that day. Then you would have this other list that lists the amount of taxes is associated with that fuel price in that state, right? And so you would subtract out the taxes, and then what you would be left with is the actual true cost of the fuel. And sometimes the state that has like a lower amount, total amount, may actually have a higher amount when you look at the price of the taxes. So when I first started driving, I had two lists. I would look at the price of the fuel for each state, and then I would look at the taxes and I would try to figure it out. And I did that for a little while, and basically I just realized I just thought it was a little too much work. And also I thought, if I just get the cheapest fuel that I can find, I'm pretty doggone close, because a lot of the neighboring states I found were kind of similar anyway. So that's how I do it. I just get the cheapest fuel. Now, having said that, typically when I do my IFTA, I pay anywhere from, I drive about 8,500 to 9,500 miles a month. And I typically pay about $200 to $250. I've never gotten a refund. I've always had to pay. So I guess that's what happens when you don't try to cover the taxes in each state by fueling up a little bit here, a little bit there in all the states you're passing through. But I feel like I get the cheapest price on fuel overall, so I feel like I'm saving money. So anyway. Okay, before I tell you about my audit, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I actually track my IFTA. So I create a spreadsheet that I use. Every time I go cross over a state line, I just voice record into my phone, into the state that I just traveled into and the miles that I have. And I create a spreadsheet so it tracks basically how many miles per state that I go through. And then it adds them all up so that I have a table at the end of the quarter that shows me all the miles for that particular state that I travel through. Then whenever I get fuel, I just put in the same spreadsheet. I put in the state, the date, the amount of gallons, and the cost. So I put that into the fuel spreadsheet, and the same thing. It calculates it and adds it all up for each state so that it's ready at the end of the quarter. Now, if you have all your information like compiled, like I have mine from my spreadsheet, actually filing your IFTA is not that hard. It takes like 20 minutes, and I know that because my state has a daggone timer on their website to where if you don't get it done in Virginia within like 20 minutes, it'll time out and you have to start all over. So I know it only takes me 20 minutes. I mean, I'm hustling to get it done under that time. When I first started, it timed out on me a couple of times. So I've kind of got it down now to where I can do it on the first try under that 20 minutes. And what I do when I'm doing it is I just take the exact information that I compiled as I was driving along throughout the quarter, and I put it in the spreadsheet. You put in the amount of miles per state, and then you put in the amount of gallons per state that you purchased in that state. And so then the website for Virginia, it just calculates it all and either gives me a refund or a bill. And I typically always get a bill. Now, I started my operations in 2021, July 2021. And I received my audit notice in November 2023. So, and by me having worked in the government, I'm guessing that was the 29-month mark. I'm guessing that the state probably wants to audit people within a 3-year time frame. That's just my speculation. But so I would potentially think if you're starting up, you're going to get an IFTA audit within your first 3 years. Okay, so I was out on the road when I got the notification. I received an email, and so I was able to get it immediately, which was good. And inside the packet that was sent, the audit packet, there was 5 things. There was the notification letter, there was the questionnaire, there was a list of documents that you need to provide, and then there was another list that's like, if you don't have those documents, this is technically the information you have to provide. So if you didn't have the documents, you can just find a way to provide this information, which is important because that's what I ended up needing to do. So the last thing was just some waiver on the time frames. I guess they want you to get it done within 30 days. So that's how long I had to respond, was 30 days. So because I got it when I was on the road, I just went ahead and sent the information back to them. I couldn't send all of it. Some of the stuff like the notification letter required me to kind of fill it out and sign it and send it back. So I couldn't do that right away because I was on the road. But for all the other information in terms of the state mileage, the fuel mileage, all that stuff, I had it already. So I just emailed it off to them. Oh, and the audit was for a 3-month period. It wasn't the current year. It was the year before. So 1 quarter in a prior year was the audit period. So when I sent that to him by email, he responded back pretty quickly, and he basically said my fuel information was perfect, but the state information was insufficient. So the issue with the state information was that he said he needed to recreate my trips, right? The information I gave him, basically a summary of all the miles I had traveled in each state, he said it wasn't specific enough. So he asked me for something that could show him the actual trips that I took so he could recreate them, so he could, that's how he would basically audit the period. So he said, do you have any trip sheets, or do you have any ELD information? And this is where I had a little issue. So unfortunately, I didn't have either one of those. So, and this is why. For my trip sheets, I had just sent them, like you get them, you send them to the broker, you get paid, and then you just let them, I didn't keep them. Basically, my Google Drive got full, and so I was having to delete stuff. And I started, but a couple years back, not thinking I would need those trip sheets, but unfortunately, I needed those trip sheets. So I didn't have the trip sheets. The next thing is the GPS type of geolocation information that he wanted, like the ELD information. So another thing I don't typically do, I know you're supposed to, but I don't really put in the trip information in each time I take a load, into my ELD. I just haven't done it. So I have a Garmin, and I like my Garmin because I paid $99 for it when I first started, and I've never paid anything else. Like, I don't have a subscription, or I don't pay a recurring fee, but I know if you have a little more expensive subscription or something, it tracks that stuff for you automatically. So mine doesn't. So I mean, that's one thing to consider. If you want the cheapest one like I do, then it's not going to be tracking you the way that some of the more expensive ones do. So I had to figure out a way to get this information to them. So one thing I decided, I was like, maybe I can use my QuickBook invoices, because on my invoices it has the location I started from, the date, the location, and the amount. But basically, I was like, well, can I use these invoices as the trip information? And he said yes. So that was good. And then I still needed some kind of geolocation information, like a GPS information to show where the truck was going. Now, the only thing I had, and I had used my Google timeline in the past to get like detention for loads and stuff, if the broker's app wasn't working right, or if I needed a little more backup documentation for what time I arrived or whatever, I used my Google timeline. So that was the only thing I could think of. So I asked him if I could use my Google timeline, and he said yes. So that was good. So then I could at least move forward. So I started to compile all my Google stuff and these invoices for QuickBooks. And right at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a lot of work. I was like, I don't even know if this is worth it. So I asked him, I sent him an email. I was like, hey, but if I can't get all this stuff, what's the penalty? He said about $1,500. So I was like, oh, all right, I need to take time. It was worth the time to do it with $1,500. So Google, I had to take all the invoices from each load. Oh, one other thing. So because it was going to be a lot, I asked him, I was like, look, is there any way, 3 months of this is going to be quite a bit. It's like, is there any way you can just spot check this somehow? And so he actually cut my quarter down, cut the 3 months down to 1 month, which was huge because I had to compile all this information. So I got to start compiling. Basically, I got all my QuickBooks for that month. And then the Google was the toughest thing, because if you ever use your Google timeline, then you realize, like, if you go, and it's not just one screenshot. Like, if you scroll the whole day, especially as a truck driver driving all day, all the places you go through, you have to scroll way down to get to see the whole day. So I had to basically compile these long, like tons of screenshots to compile just one day. And so I compiled all the days and compiled the QuickBooks, and then I sent that over to them. Now, I will say there is some issues though in doing it the way I did it. 3 things that if you have to end up doing it this way with the Google timeline, 3 things. Number 1, your information had better be accurate, because Google is very accurate. And if you weren't supplying the right information, or you had just like fudged it, maybe you had forgotten to do some states or whatever you fudged, it's not going to match. So if you're going to use Google timeline, your stuff needs to be accurate. The second thing is, like I already mentioned, it was just a pain to compile. The third thing is that there were some like privacy issues. So if you've ever looked at your Google timeline, right, it shows the places you've been, but if you take a picture at that place, that picture at that place is included in your Google timeline. So on my timeline, I had all the places, but also all the pictures of the things all the pictures that I took at those places. So I know that an auditor had a field day with my Vegas trips. So, oh man, maybe. But anyway, that's another issue with having to use Google, because like your privacy, he's going to see all your stuff. So I did learn a couple of lessons that I would like to convey to you guys. So basically, from what I already said, one thing that would have saved me is for the trip sheet. Even if I had deleted the trip sheets, one thing I had not been doing is putting the trip sheets, attaching them to my invoices in QuickBooks. So basically, the same way attach your receipt in QuickBooks, you can attach your trip sheet to your invoice. And I hadn't been doing that. So that's one thing I've started doing. I'm still not doing it as regular as I need to, by the way. I need to get on that. So, but basically attach your trip sheets into QuickBooks. So then if you delete it from your personal stuff, or you lose it or whatever, it's always there in the cloud in QuickBooks. So that's a good backup. I would say even after all this, I still like not paying the expensive rates for the EOD. My Garmin, my $99 Garmin works fine. I just need to, if I want to be on tip top, I need to put the trip data inside every single trip I take. I need to put the information in there. But that's more the fault of me, not the cheap Garmin. So the final verdict was, at first I talked to him and he was like, he gave me a heads up. He was like, yeah, it's going to be about $50. I was like, oh, that's not bad. He said there was one load I delivered to North Carolina, but I did not have any North Carolina miles. So I guess maybe I have forgot North Carolina. I don't know. So he said that, and then he said the final though was only $12. So that was good. I mean, that's not that bad. I figured he must have gave me a discount after seeing all those Vegas pictures and got his entertainment value. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, look, that's how I handle that's how I handle my IFTA audit. Hopefully, there's some nuggets in here that can help you guys be prepared. My way was by no means perfect, but I mean, I was able to get through it. So with $12, that's not bad. It did require some work to, compiling that information. But yeah, if you guys just learn from what I did and don't do some of the things I did well, but the things that I hadn't done, if you guys do that, then you'll be good to go. All right. Hey, thanks for watching. Till next time.